Hi guys, it is May 5, 2015. I'm going to read this article, Feds Panic on Mass Common Core Test Refusals Threaten Reprisals. Yeah, people are beginning to push back on this Common Core, especially the standardized testing. But before I read it, I want to recommend 3 videos. This one, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, standardized testing. If you've not subscribed to John Oliver's channel, I highly recommend doing so. He posts on YouTube videos from his shows where he actually deals with really important issues. And in this particular video, he's dealing with standardized testing and the pushback. He, of course, educates people with flair. He does it in a way that is humorous. But it's very important. Listen to this video because he's talking about what these kids are going through prior to having to take the test or during the test, and they're nauseous and they're very upset and they're crying. And this is insane, this Common Core. Oh my God. Well, if you don't know anything about Common Core, then I recommend this video. Brilliant anti-Common Core speech by Dr. Duke Pesta, 2 hours long. Everything you need to know about Common Core and how sick it is, it's right here in this video. And I really do hope that you watch it and circulate it, especially to teachers and parents who are still uninformed, and then keep circulating it to the teachers who are actually informed about Common Core, but don't do anything because, well, their paycheck. They have to get their paycheck. How could anybody, I don't know how teachers actually go to school every single day and teach these children what they know is crap, what they know is based on a communist standard agenda. They know it, and they go in every single day and they don't say anything, and they teach these children. They know how they're indoctrinating them because, it's going to interfere with their comfortable lifestyle. That I don't get. I'm sorry for saying it, but you know what? Everybody needs to stand up now. Everybody needs to stand up, to band together, to fight against the complete and utter destruction of this country. That's just my feeling. But I also want to recommend the countless videos on YouTube with Charlotte Isaby talking about the dumbing down of America. Right here, she wrote the book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. This is a woman who was had a high position in the Department of Education under Ronald Reagan, uncovered documents that revealed that our education system was being transformed into a communist education system full of communist indoctrination. This woman has been at it since she discovered those documents. But she also has videos on the Common Core takeover, which is the communist takeover. So I really hope that you watch and circulate her videos as well. But let me read this because it's very interesting how the federal government, the Obama administration, Arne Duncan, the head of the Department of Education, are really, out of their friggin' minds, these bully psychopaths who are threatening children, parents, teachers, states. Do what we say or else. Really, I just wish that more people would have the courage to fight these incredibly sick individuals. There's only a few of them. There's so many of us. There's so many of us. But let's get into it. Public resistance to Common Core is exploding across America, and officials are not happy about it. The Obama administration's Department of Education, I read that and I suddenly had this visceral response. Is it really his education system or is it ours? It's ours. Okay. But the Obama administration's Department of Education, along with pro-Common Core government officials across the country, under pressure from the feds, appear to be in a panic mode, facing a growing nationwide opt-out movement to refuse participation in the unconstitutional, federally funded testing regime aligned with the Obama-backed national school standards. Senior bureaucrats, including Education Secretary Arne Duncan, have actually started resorting to lawless threats against parents, teachers, students, and entire state governments. Some parents were threatened by officials with jail time, Even small children are being punished by the state for opting out of the deeply controversial test, with one California mother telling the New American that her daughter was publicly denied ice cream in retaliation. Oh. But so far, the threats are only emboldening the opposition. Good, good, good. Perhaps the most outrageous threat so far came from Obama's education chief, Duncan, who boasted in recent years of using government schools to create green citizens. Green citizens with UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, as a global partner. That's right. He boasted of turning our schools, using government schools, public schools, to create green citizens, global citizens with the United Nations New World Order. They are indoctrinating our nation's children into thinking that they're not United States citizens, they're global citizens. They're good, green, global citizens. How nice is that, huh? And you know what? We've got public school teachers teaching social studies, and they're teaching this stuff. God. Late last month, Duncan, who was greeted by protesters urging him to stop test bullying, threatened federal intervention to force Americans to take the Common Core test if states would not do the job. We think most states will do that, Duncan proclaimed at an Education Writers Association conference in Chicago. If states don't do that, then we, the federal government, have an obligation to step in. Really? Well, they only feel obliged because they have an agenda. These are communists who are absolutely taking over the United States. These are the domestic enemies that we have in the United States government. And that should make everybody upset. So to stop test bullying, threatening federal intervention to force Americans to take the Common Core test if states will not do the job. If states do not do that, then we, the federal government, have an obligation to step in. In reality, of course, the federal government has an obligation under the U.S. Constitution to butt out. To butt out. We did have a constitutional republic, and we can still have that if the people rise up and begin to fight these people. Again, they're only a few. We happen to be a whole lot. If we fought against these people who are tremendously sick to the core, disturbed, and transforming the United States into a communist nation for the New World Order, we could do that. We could absolutely do that. But too many people are just so brainwashed or just showing up for the paycheck and don't care about anything. It really is profoundly upsetting, especially every day, as you see everything getting more and more destroyed by the day. So, in reality, of course, the federal government has an obligation under the U.S. government to butt out. But despite swearing an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, including the 10th Amendment, Duncan has led the charge in recent years to finish federalizing the government school system and to use it as what he called a weapon to change the world. That's right, Duncan, Secretary of Education. I'm going to use our schools as a weapon to change the world, which means that he's indoctrinating United States children into thinking that they are global citizens. And didn't Obama say that he was going to fundamentally change the United States? Well, he sure did, didn't he? Sounding oblivious to America's federalist system of constitutional government, Duncan proclaimed that he expected state governments to hold districts and schools feet to the fire on this, as if state governments were mere administrative units to enforce decrees from the all-powerful federal executive branch. Hundreds of thousands of students in New York recently opted out. Almost nobody took the test in some districts amid a full-scale uprising by teachers, students, and parents. In Chicago, where even the teachers' union has blasted the federal takeover, school officials were threatened with the loss of more than $1 billion in state and federal education aid, if not enough students were successfully coerced into taking the Common Core aligned test. Still, few details were provided on what it might look like to have the Obama administration step in and force students to take the controversial test, an outrageous threat he also made in a discussion with Motoko Rich of the New York Times. Critics, however, ridiculed the threat, daring the administration to try it. Assuming that Duncan is not planning to call in the National Guard to haul off opt-outing 8-year-olds, which wouldn't surprise me, considering everything that's going on in this country. Would it surprise you? Next headline, National Guard called in to haul off opt-outing 8-year-olds. You gotta obey. You gotta take those Common Core tests, and if you opt out, even though we gave you the right to opt out, well, if you choose that right, we're going to haul you off. The National Guard's going to come in. You know, it just drives me nuts. We have the police arresting first graders for drawing a gun or for kissing, their schoolmate, claiming that it's sexual harassment. And you know what boggles my mind is that how could any teacher allow that to happen? How could any teacher allow the police to come into their first grade classroom and actually arrest a student for drawing a gun or kissing, their schoolmate? Where are the adults in this country that are not stepping up like Carol Burris, an award-winning New York principal who recently stepped down to fight back against what she sees as problems with the public education system? That would surely lead to court challenges, forcing the education department to justify penalizing schools when parents exercise their legitimate right to refuse the test. An impossible position to defend. Noting that students of all races and backgrounds were opting out of the testing scheme, Burrs pointed out that the rates defy the stereotype that the movement is a rebellion of petulant white suburban moms. In a recent statement published by the Washington Post, the New York, quote, 2013 High School Principal of the Year also highlighted a number of troubling government abuses targeting parents. And that High School Principal of the Year is Carol Burris. Among other concerns, Burris said, citing activists and teachers, that administrators in some districts took advantage of non-English speaking parents by lying to them about the tests. By lying to them. When I read that sentence, I thought about the Native Americans who were lied to repeatedly by those in our government when they were taking over their lands and lying to them about the contracts, and they then would sign the contracts, and then they would find out that they were lied to. We are a lying nation. These lies are so sickening. But yeah, school districts took advantage of non-English speaking parents by lying to them about the tests, saying they were mandatory or that children would be held back for refusal to take them. One critic called it blatant discrimination at best. Burris also lambasted the Common Core test and noted that Duncan's own children, listen to this, Duncan's own children go to a non-Common Core school, as do the children of Common Core financier Bill Gates and Common Core strongman Obama. They don't send their children to Common Core schools because they know that Common Core it's dumbing down the nation's children. She concluded the scathing commentary by noting that the movement to refuse the test puts the entire education reform agenda in serious trouble. And that's why, just like TPP and the protests gaining a little bit of momentum, and I stated, now is the time to call, ride that wave. Now is the time for parents and teachers to come out strong and ride this wave. Beyond targeting states and schools, education officials in some areas responding to federal pressure have strayed into the realm of potential criminal activity in seeking to boost participation in the tests. In one especially extreme case from Georgia, school officials, citing supposed federal and state mandates on the tests. See, officials across the board are lying. They are lying to people. Children, it's mandated that they get vaccines, that they get vaccinated, when it's not true. That's what schools are telling parents, that they have to. It's mandatory. There's a law. You've got to vaccinate your children. And it's an abject lie. And now they're telling parents that their children have to take these tests. It's mandatory. It's not. It's a lie. And these people who lie need to be held accountable and removed from their positions for lying. God. Beyond targeting states and schools. Yes, their school officials are going into the realm of potential criminal activity and seeking to boost participation in tests, on the test. So parents could not refuse to allow their children to take the test. A meeting was scheduled for the parents to meet with the principal. However, when the parents arrived to have that meeting, they were met by police officers who reportedly warned them that they may be trespassing on school property due to their opposition to the testing regime. Police state? Anyone? In the end, it was apparently sorted out without arrest, but the incident was deeply troubling to parents. In South Carolina, education bureaucrats went even further. The officials reportedly warned parents that they could be imprisoned for 30 days for refusing to allow their children to participate in the national testing regime, which was mandated under the unconstitutional Bush-era No Child Left Behind scheme. Are you kidding? Oh my God. According to news reports citing to the group South Carolina Parents Involved in Education, South Carolina Education Department Chief Operating Officer Elizabeth Carpentier also threatened groups or organizations that encourage testing refusals with potential criminal charges of aiding and abetting a crime. Are you not having some kind of visceral reaction to hearing this? School officials cited in media reports downplayed the threats, saying that parents and groups were merely threatened with existing statutes on truancy for not sending children to school for the testing. In California, mother Amy Watson and her husband decided that their 10-year-old daughter would not be taking the unconstitutional, federally funded Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium test. She was placed in an alternate classroom each testing day with other opt-out students. In response to the refusal, though, on the day after testing was finished, the 3 girls who opted out again were identified, called out, and given instructions to go to the same classrooms as during SBAC testing. Watson told the New American. The girls were sent out so the test takers could have an ice cream party. Oh my God. My daughter returned to her classroom with the trash can full of empty ice cream containers. There were 3 leftover containers. The 3 opt-out students were not permitted to have them. I'm sorry. Adults in this country, so many of them, are profoundly disturbed creatures. These 3 containers were given to teachers instead. The same thing happened to opt-out students in other grades. She called it an egregious act. It is so pathetic. Now Watson has filed a privacy law violation complaint with the U.S. Department of Education after her daughter and other opt-out students were intentionally targeted. The 10-year-old is now fearful of additional retaliation from school officials, and Watson is seeking counseling for her daughter due to the emotional and psychological impact the targeting had on her. I described the situation to the representative at the Federal Department of Education, Watson said. He verified that, yes, this is a violation of the federal privacy law to protect students. The outraged mother is also in contact with attorneys and vowed to continue pursuing the case. Since the scandal, school officials have tried to downplay the incident as a misunderstanding, Watson said, but she is not buying it. As the rebellion against the unconstitutional Common Core testing regime continues to sweep across America like wildfire, the Obama administration is certain to continue doing everything possible to stop it, including lawlessly threatening the American people. But despite those threats, as awareness of Common Core spreads, opposition will keep spreading as well. The testing regime is crucial for enforcing Common Core and for gathering vast amounts of private data on students for the federal government. Without it, the widely criticized standards regime foisted on Americans by tax-funded bribes from the Obama administration may well crumble. And that's why it's really, really important to watch this video and circulate it, because he goes into a lot of how this Common Core came about and how it was foisted upon states by bribing them, by withholding federal funds unless they adopted Common Core. And he also goes into, Common Core is about spying on your children, collecting all kinds of data on your children that will stay with them for their entire life. It's profoundly disturbing. The education establishment is now in a serious bind. On one hand, it can rip off the mask and resort to more outright lawlessness and tyranny in an effort to enforce compliance with its deeply unpopular machinations. Such a reaction would almost certainly backfire and produce even more public outrage and resistance. Alternatively, the Obama administration and its backers can risk having the entire Common Core scheme come crashing down around them by ignoring the mushrooming national movement to refuse the tests. Either way, the American people can still win the battle for education in the long run if the pressure stays on and if the pressure mounts. And that's why it's really important to circulate the videos, circulate the articles, circulate the information. I am sorry for the constant interruptions and my ranting. I am very upset about what's happening to the children in this country. I do have a real problem with those in the most vulnerable group getting abused. The elderly, children, four-leggeds. I have a real big problem with that. And I would hope that most people feel the same, that all people feel the same. These children are being abused by Common Core. It's abuse that's taking place. And I won't need to go into it. Just watch this video, and check out all of these videos. And you will find that what these children are being put through, I'm sorry, it amounts to abuse. So, if you got this far, thank you for hanging in with me.